Good morning. Welcome to October. My name is Diana Connolly, although many of you know me as Tate and Simon's mama. I've been a member of UU Amherst since 2010, which seems so long ago and yet just yesterday. My pronouns are she and they. They is a singular pronoun from the 14th century. There are many people who've chosen to use it more recently to expand our notions of what gender might mean. And so in solidarity, I invite you to call me she, call me they, call me by my name. Just be sure to call me if you need me. I actually am wearing a sweatshirt that I'm going to come around and show you, because I was going to wear a dress, because I usually wear a dress when I'm worship associate, but then I knew what today was going to be about. So I changed into a new sweatshirt that I just got for this election season. Some of you who've been here before know that I wear t-shirts that I like, and a lot of my t-shirts come from this company called Mahogany Mommies, and I'm going to post this on our Facebook page, but I'll also maybe send it out for people who aren't on the Facebook page. It's a wonderful woman of color-owned business that has great messages. So I'm going to step away, but I'm going to tell you, just so I can show you, but I'm going to say into the microphone what the name is. It says, empower a woman, change the world. Empower a woman, change the world. And I happen to be, this is personal, not speaking on behalf of UU Amherst at all, I happen to be a Democrat. I happen to be planning on voting for the wonderful Democratic ticket. And I have some t-shirts that indicate that in actual letters. But I like this one sometimes because I like being able to go out, have this, which is something I believe in, but also in this election season can lead to interesting conversations, because I like thinking about how I can bring my faith and who I am to the world in sometimes ways that are very apparent, but sometimes ways that are somewhat gentle when we're having conversations that are tough conversations. Anyways, enough about me. We are so glad, hey you guys, we're so glad that each one of you is here today, including those of you who are online. Thank you. If you're a newcomer, we hope you will come back and make your spiritual home with us. For those who've already made UU Amherst your home, we hope you will continue to challenge yourself to grow and discover more opportunities to learn and serve our community. For those gathered in the chapel, I urge you to either place your phone on airplane mode, the preferred thing, or to at least, or maybe even turn it off completely. That frees up web bandwidth for those on the live stream and those who'll be watching later, so there's not this like, yips. So please do that. Everything about our time together has been carefully crafted to create a cohesive experience. So I invite you to let yourself relax, be fully present to what unfolds around and within you. You are safe here. Even if it's your first time, you are among friends. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, you are welcome here.
Merry meet. I'm Reverend Michelle Buhite, the minister of this congregation. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. You'll notice that I said I offer a brave space, not necessarily a safe space. Oh, I hope that you will find a warm and safe space here in this community. But it is also my hope that the loving, open-hearted acceptance that you experience here gives you the courage to be your full self in all areas of life. National Coming Out Day is coming up later this week on October 11th. And personally, I think we all have things to come out about, whether it has to do with our gender identity, our sexuality, or some other aspect of how we are courageously living into the fullness of our identities. Maybe your current identity is as someone who is filled with anxiety about the state of our country and the world. Then today, you are in the right place at the right time. Our speaker this morning is Katie Cosgrove, a grief and trauma specialist and our director of faith development. And she has some thoughts to share with us a little later and some tools as we all wait with bated breath to see what the coming weeks will bring. Stay tuned. Our opening words this morning come from Marta Valentin.
We come together today to honor the universal community of seekers to which we all belong.
Hoy nos reunimos para honrar a la comunidad universal en constante búsqueda a la cual pertenecemos todos.
We gather together today to share from our deepest place of safety, that we might nurture ourselves by celebrating one another.
Nos reunimos hoy para compartir desde una seguridad profunda, que nosotros nos sostenemos en la celebración de cada uno.
We call into our presence this hour our ancestors, whose love, labor, and commitment made it possible for us to be here now.
Invocamos la presencia de nuestros ancestros, su amor, su trabajo y sus compromisos, que hicieron posible que estemos aquí ahora.
Let us call one another to the table of abundance, that we may feed on those fruits that sustain us and ever ask us to grow.
Invitemos a la mesa de la abundancia a cada uno de nosotros para comer de estos frutos que nos sostienen y nos piden que sigamos creciendo.
Let us open to this moment with hearts that have no borders.
Que en este momento se abran nuestros corazones sin fronteras.
When we gather on Sundays, we employ the elements of water and fire to create this sacred space where we can be fully present. We begin with an acknowledgement that our church is built on holy ground, the land that was nurtured and cultivated by those who occupied it before us. We offer this libation as our giveaway to honor the struggle of all people seeking justice and peace. We seek the courage and wisdom to heal the wounds of the past and build a better future with all our neighbors and fellow creatures together. It is also our custom when we gather to light a chalice. The chalice is a cup or vessel that symbolizes gathered community. The flame represents the spark that each one of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. So please join me in our chalice lighting words right up there. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest of truth and meaning, of the celebration of the life we share together. Thank you, Maddie and Ruth. As a community of faith, we put our faith in one another. We offer one another promises of how we aspire to be with one another. I invite you to join me in sharing our covenant. And a note, it does not matter if today is your very first day here, or if you've already made UU Amherst your home, or if you were part of the people who wrote this covenant. It doesn't matter, because we're all going to experience the grace of our covenant together. Please join me. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. Our song of intention is found in the gray hymnal, if you want to use the hymnals, where you're perfectly welcome to do so. It's number 347. 347, Gather the Spirit. And the words will also be projected up front. So if you can rise in body or spirit, so we can sing together.
Seated. Each week, we bring our whole selves into this space, this beloved, sacred space that is made holy by our presence together. And it is our custom when we gather to not only acknowledge the land with a libation, to light a chalice, to add our flame to you values and principles and being centered in love for all those folks across the world who are lighting a chalice. We do something maybe a little different, a little unusual. We gather at a table where we are invited to bring all those complicated pieces of ourselves. The little spark of joy, maybe the burden of care, worry, sorrow. We all come into this space with all of that. And we make room for all of that. And so as the music plays, I invite you to come forward if you wish and to place a stone or a shell on this table labyrinth as a symbol of the trust that we put in one another and the trust that we put in the presence of love that grows within and among us. Come forward as you will. I place a final stone in recognition of the joys, concerns, and sorrows of the wider community for those who are joining us online. You are part of this beloved community. Let's just share a couple of breaths as we expand our awareness, perhaps beyond the boundaries of this space. We include those who may not be present, but whom we carry in our hearts. We bring into our circle of love and care those who are ill and those who love and are caring for them. Those who are in pain, either in body or spirit. Those who are lonely, those who are feeling overwhelmed, lost, and all those who have been wronged. We are part of a web of life that connects us with all the universe. We are grateful for the miracle of consciousness that we share, the consciousness that gives us the power to love, to care, and to do. May it ever be so in our lives. Amen, and blessed be. I invite you to join me in our musical reflection. You can find it in the Teal hymnal, it's 1053. We'll sing the chorus through twice, but Gregory, I'd like you to just play it one time through so we get the tune. So first time, just let the music of it wash over you. And then we'll sing it together once and get acquainted with it. And then we'll sing it a second time as a prayer that we offer one another. that your loving is a miracle. How greatly you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. A time for all ages is going to make you hungry with those burgers on the grill. So this story is from a book of stories based on the UU principles. The book is What If Nobody Forgave, which is also the title of one of the stories. But this story is called Spiked Fences. Spiked fences. I just like to say the word spiked, but I'll continue. So not too long ago, on this side of town, 4 neighbors were living together in peace and harmony. They liked to get together to play, to sing, and they really liked to get together to barbecue and to enjoy some time together and, some delicious food. And they grilled out so often that one of the neighbors actually built a whole grill area in their backyard so that everyone could gather and cook their meal together. These friends always liked to eat hamburgers. Some would have cheese on their burgers, others preferred lettuce. A few loved to pour on just great gobs of steak sauce. Yeah, I know. Are you salivating yet? And they felt so good about the fact that everyone could do their own thing and everyone could eat their hamburgers any way they wanted. All was well in the neighborhood until one day, the neighbor with the grill, that important grill in the backyard, well, they got a job in another city and they moved away. And as they waved goodbye with tears streaming down their faces, the remaining friends, they were just so sure that no one could ever fill that space in that beloved community that that very special grill holder had. Well, a few days later, a new neighbor moved in, and the others watched very carefully as the neighbor moved in her new things. And they were delighted when she came out to barbecue that evening and began to heat up the coals. Oh, looked like she was going to fit right in. But wait a minute. Where was the hamburger? The stranger placed something soft and flabby onto the grill, and as it cooked, it gave off an odor that was too unfamiliar to be pleasant. "You," said the other neighbors, and everyone ran into their houses and locked the doors. The new neighbors soon came around, knocking on doors, planning to invite everyone to dinner, but the others pretended they weren't home. They called each other on the phone. "We've got to get rid of that new neighbor, or at least make sure her awful cooking smells don't pollute our backyards." So they decided that they would build fences in their backyard, fences so tall that no awful smells would ever reach them, fences so high that the sunbeams couldn't get into her windows or onto her grass. And maybe, if they were lucky, the new neighbor would move away when her house got dark and her grass turned brown. Perhaps then, the right kind of person would move in. Someone who had the good sense to make hamburgers. And so these neighbors put up their fences the size of skyscrapers, which prevented even the tiniest beam of light from getting into that new neighbor's house and even getting onto her lawn. Oh, well, unfortunately, once those fences were up, they could no longer use that really nice barbecue grill, but at least they didn't have to put up with those strange smells anymore. Now, they had been in such a hurry to put up the fences that they soon had a number of problems. First of all, the fences were about as attractive as a clump of weeds. And other neighbors around the block were beginning to complain. Second, the fences were so humongous that they were very hard to paint. It really became a pain in the neck to keep them up over the years. And finally, the fences were so heavy that they started to sag after a while. And one day, the fences just collapsed with a boom. The neighbors cautiously came out of their houses to see what had happened. Oh no, what if that new neighbor is hurt? Well, she wasn't hurt. She was gone. They hadn't seen her since the day that she moved in, so for all they knew, she might have left years ago. The neighbors realized that they had gotten what they wanted, but they weren't happy about that fact, and they were starting to think that maybe they had made a big mistake. That's all the story I know. I guess only time will tell what happens next. What happens next is we sing our children to some of their activities. You thought I was going to tell you that? No. Go in love, our hearts go with you. Go in joy, our hopes go too. Learn in love and grow in wisdom. Shine your light in all you do. I still feel really good about not telling you the end of the story, but that was the end of the story. Well, it's not the end of the story, is it? I wonder what those hamburgers represented. Okay. Our speaker this morning may look remarkably familiar to you if you've been around a little bit. Katie is not only UU Amherst's Director of Faith Development, she is also a trained trauma and grief specialist. And it is from this point of view that she will be offering some strategies for dealing with the stress of these days leading up to the election. So let's give Katie a warm welcome as she comes to the pulpit.
Good morning. Morning. Oh, things are moving up here. Stable, okay. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Katie Cosgrove, and my pronouns are she and her. A few people from this community have reached out to me and mentioned this topic to me of election grief and anxiety, something that they're personally concerned about for themselves and the world at large. But before I dive in, I want to remind us that as we gather here today, we're united by a desire to connect with something larger than ourselves. As a community, we celebrate the diversity of thought and experience that makes each of us unique, while also honoring the values that are shared that bind us together. Today, we will reflect on the themes of election grief, accepting change, and reclaiming our sense of empowerment in a world that can sometimes feel unstable. I also want to note that I will talk about the what-ifs and the maybes today, but that is not a sense of preemptive defeat, yet a preparation for what may come in hopes and action that it doesn't. Let us begin by centering ourselves, because this can be a heavy conversation. Let's take a big big, deep breath in through our nose and a big, deep breath out through our mouth. Feel the ground beneath your feet, the air around you, and the presence of each other in this sacred space. Here, we are held in love and compassion, ready to explore our emotions, our fears, and our hopes. Election seasons are often a time of heightened emotions: hope, anxiety, fear, excitement, anger, camaraderie, despair. Regardless of the outcome, these moments carry an immeasurable impact in how we see our world and our future. In the wake of an election, it's common to feel a sense of anticipatory grief, which is a sense of sorrow before something happens or a loss occurs. This grief is real, and it's important that we acknowledge it as such. Grief comes when we lose something meaningful, whether it's in the future we envisioned, a sense of progress we believed was forthcoming, safety for ourselves, or hope that a particular leader or policy would bring about positive change. This grief, though deeply personal, is often shared in the wider community. It's a collective experience, a mourning not only for ourselves, but the broader world that we care about. In this space, I invite us to hold our anticipated grief close to our heart, recognizing that it comes from a place of love. We grieve because we care. We care about justice, compassion, equality, and the well-being of all people. And in a world where these values can feel very fragile, it's natural to feel a deep sense of loss when they seem very threatened. Have you ever heard the phrase, "The only thing that stays the same is change"? Change is one of life's constants, whether we are prepared for it or not. In fact, much of the tension we feel around elections and other major life events stems from our desire to resist change, to hold on to the world as it is, or as we planned it to be. But change is inevitable. Seasons shift, people grow older, and societies evolve, and political landscapes fluctuate. It's in our nature to want stability and predictability, but life rarely grants us that luxury for very long, unfortunately. In her poem, The Peace of Wild Things, Wendell Berry writes, "When despair for the world grows in me, I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with the forethought of grief." There's wisdom in this. Learning to live in the present moment, accepting the flow of life, and trusting in our ability to adapt to whatever comes next. But accepting change doesn't mean that we need to abandon hope or give up on the world as we wish to see. Rather, it invites us to engage with life from a place of humility and resilience. It asks us to recognize that while we may not control everything, we can still respond to change with grace, creativity, and a commitment to our values. Acceptance, well, it's hard. It's not easy to accept the state of the world, politicians you don't agree with, people who have different values than you, but it is also the greatest tool we have in our tool belt. I want to invite an important term into this message: radical. For those of you who are hip in the 70s, I'm not talking about, wow, that's radical, man. But instead, I'm saying that pursuing something beyond the norm. As Tara Brach writes, radical acceptance rests on letting go of the illusion of control and the willingness to notice and accept things as they are right now without judging. Without judging. That's key here. We wouldn't be humans if we didn't have an affinity for judgment. Sometimes judging is a survival tactic, but sometimes it creates a divide that makes it impossible to see the other people as they are. Imperfect people with imperfect humans with a lot of parts, personalities, values, concerns, and fears. When we embrace radical acceptance, When we embrace radical acceptance, we begin to cultivate the space for understanding and compassion, not just for others, but for ourselves. This is the moment where acceptance transforms into action, a deep willingness to act from love, even when it feels challenging or uncertain. By moving from acceptance to action, we align ourselves with a force greater than fear, one that is rooted in love and resilience. It is in this spirit that we recognize our interdependence and the collective strength we share. Radical acceptance makes space for radical love, and through that love, we find the courage to support one another in ways that create meaningful change. This type of love does take a lot of courage. Terrence Real writes, "Love is not for the faint-hearted. It requires courage to fight for what you believe in." Interestingly enough, Reverend Michelle taught me earlier this week that the Latin root of courage is cor, which translates to heart. Courage starts with our heart. As we think about courage, it's important to acknowledge that true bravery also requires vulnerability. To face our fears, including the uncertainty of election outcomes, means allowing ourselves to feel grief, feel our anxiety, and feel our hopes without pushing them away. This is where the heart of community plays such a crucial role. We need one another in order to hold space for these emotions, to remind us that even when the world feels unstable, we aren't facing it alone. The courage to show up for one another is, in itself, an act of radical love, and the kind that transforms both our individual hearts and the world around us. One of the most important resources we have when facing grief and change is each other. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm the interconnectedness web of existence. The interconnectedness is not just an abstract idea, it's a reality. We rely on one another in times of joy and sorrow, in moments of celebration and uncertainty, and our gathering of such a community is already radical. Reverend Michelle shared a powerful quote with me by Charles Einstein that goes, "We are inseparate from the universe, and our being partakes in the being of everyone and everything else." This is particularly true in the face of election grief and societal change. When we feel powerless, it's easy to isolate ourselves, to retreat into our own fear or anger, but community is the antidote to that. Together we can hold each other's grief, knowing that it will not overwhelm us. Together we can share our hopes for the future, recognizing that none of us must carry this burden and hope alone. In the moments of political transition, we are reminded that democracy is a collective act. No single person or group can create change alone. It requires a multitude of voices and efforts. Likewise, in our personal and spiritual lives, we find strength and inspiration when we come together as a community. Today, as we navigate our feelings about change, whether in our personal lives, in our nation, or in our world, let us remember that we are not alone. Here, we lift each other up. Here, we can listen deeply to another's fears and hopes, and here, we can find strength to move together. Grief, when left unchecked, can lead to a sense of helplessness. We may feel that the world is slipping away from us, that the forces of injustice and inequality are too great to overcome. But despair is not the end of our story. It's simply part of the journey. When we grieve, we are acknowledging that something precious has been lost or is missing. But grief can also be an entrance to empowerment. It invites us to ask, what can we do now? How can we contribute to the healing and transformation of our communities, our nation, and our world? UU values assume that each of us have inherent worth and dignity. We are all agents of change. While we may not always win the battles we hope to win, the broader fight for justice continues on, especially when we refuse to give up. Each of us, in our own way, plays a role in shaping that effort. Whether we do so through activism, art, conversation, or simply living lives that are rooted in compassion. We are a vital part of a movement that is moving towards a just and loving world. This translates to helping out in the food pantry, donating clothes, greeting newcomers to the building, volunteering as a worship associate, or just living a life full of love and welcoming and belonging. And so much more that I can't mention in one sentence. This is where empowerment begins, not in the grand, sweeping victories, but in the small, persistent actions that remind us of our power to make a difference. We may not be able to control the outcome of every election or every direction of policy, but we can control how we respond. We can choose to be a force for good, even in the face of disappointment or joy. As we prepare to leave the sanctuary today, I invite you to consider how you can carry forward the themes that we've explored: grief, change, acceptance, empowerment. How can you hold space for your own grief while also remaining open to new possibilities? Could you use a meditation, do a labyrinth, go on a nature walk, volunteer for a cause close to your heart, or build community? How can you embrace the inevitable changes of life while staying rooted in your deepest values? And how can you reclaim your own sense of empowerment, trusting that even the smallest actions, when taken with love, radical love, can make a profound difference? We are not called to do this work alone. As a community, we are here to support one another, to celebrate our triumphs, and to bear witness to our struggles. Together, we can navigate the complexities of our world and continue working towards a future grounded in justice, compassion, and hope. Before I get to my final slide, I want to name some of these feelings so that they're out in the world and we can hold them as a community together. So I invite you to just speak up, shout it into the ether, and I'll repeat it back for everyone to hear. What are we feeling today about change, acceptance, grief, hope, fear? I rise above. That's beautiful. Overwhelmed. We carry that. Doubt. Doubt creeps in everywhere. At the bottom, that gave me goosebumps. At the bottom of the box, there is hope. Sadness. Anxiety. How appropriate that was said at the same time. Anxiety. That's why we're here today. We'll be having a post-election gathering to hold these feelings of grief, fear, anxiety, doubt, hope, excitement on November 6th at 7 p.m. in the Murray Meeting Room. We can arrange rides for anyone who wants to come but doesn't have access to transportation that night. And may we leave here today feeling a little bit more grounded, a little more helpful, a little bit more hopeful, and a little more empowered to create the world we wish to see. Thank you.
Wow. Just wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We have a song in response. Guide My Feet, number 348 in the gray hymnal. The words will, as always, be projected upon. Please rise and kind of stretch and get ready to sing. Guide My Feet.
Guide
Yes, we're not alone. Making time for offerings of gifts and pledges is an act of faith, an opportunity for us to live one of the core values of Unitarian Universalism, generosity. Our generosity connects us to one another in relationships of interdependence and mutuality. Remember, this congregation exists because of you and you online. The acts of service you engage in and your generous contribution. Any and every aspect of congregational life is made possible because of the generosity of members and friends. In other words, because of you. So we need some people to help pass the baskets along the aisles. So we need 3 people to go. Oh, we've got 2 already over there. And now we've got 3. All right, we're set. And so your offerings will greatly be received. For those of you online or for those of you watching later, you can do it online. Go to our webpage. We begin each service with the lighting of our chalice, the symbolic act to remind us that each of us is a spark that creates the flame to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more compassion and justice to the world. And at the end, we extinguish the chalice. We don't do that to quench the flame, just to return it to our individual hearts, here in the room and online. Strengthened by this time together so that we can share our light to the world. Please join me as we extinguish our combined flame and accept the renewed flame in your own heart, that each of us may bring more light and dark love to the hurting world by saying these words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts as the will that we ours together again. As our service draws to an end, our service to the world is ready to begin. We have so many opportunities for growth and service, and you can find them in your order of service. You can find them on the website. As somebody who's one of the dancers, I want to remind you of the magical date of October 19th. The Amherst Little Free Pantry is going to be offering a fundraiser where we're going to have a witch dance and all sorts of other things, including a bonfire in our ecology center. And why are we doing this? We are doing this to bring resources so that we continue to do our ministry through the Amherst Little Free Pantry. And so we're bringing the fun to fundraising. Speaking of fundraising, many thanks to all who have given so far to our much-needed new boiler system, so we can be warm and cozy when the weather is not so much so. We're off to a great start, and every contribution brings us closer to our goal. And now Doug Funke is going to come up, and I don't know where Doug's over there. He's going to come up and tell us something really important. Obviously, I do not know enough about it to say more.
Okay, thanks. And I'll be really quick. Those of you who stopped at the East Side Parkway's booth at our Green Festival, a lot of people said, please let us know if there's anything that's going to happen that we need to know about to be part of that at all. There is a press conference being held on Monday. I apologize for the short notice. It's at Humboldt and Northampton. It's near the Science Museum. It's a press conference announcing that our lawyers, we're suing the DOT for their Kensington project, are issuing an injunction with the legal system to get the Department of Transportation to not move ahead with their work, which they're planning to do, and because of the ongoing lawsuits. So that's being announced on Monday. Come and and join us. We're trying to get as many as we can at that. In that same vein, I also have a petition. If you didn't sign it when you were here, I'll have it back in the coffee hour. You can sign it, and I can answer questions as well. So anyway, Monday, press conference, Humboldt and Northampton. Oh, okay, 11 o'clock. Thank you. My mistake. And I put a poster up on the bulletin board, and I'll have this back at the table too, so you can take a picture of it or whatever you need to do.
Thank you.
I hope so.
So look at all the important things and reaching out to the world that we do. And now, please rise in body or spirit, including those of you at home. Just stand up as we sing our closing blessing and remain standing afterward for Michelle's benediction.
Twinkle your eyes at one another. Travel light and travel easy till I see you once again. Travel light and travel easy, and remember I'm your friend. Take courage, friends. The way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. Go in peace. Good to see you.
take a